I didn't speak up. I stood at the back of the church watching Robert marry another woman. We had broken up only 3 weeks ago after 22 years together. My hands shook, but I kept my face calm. I knew what they were really after. I held my mom's gold necklace tight as I watched their fake smiles. Robert kept looking at his watch during their vows, the fancy watch I gave him for our 20th anniversary. His eyes kept moving around, never staying on his new wife's face for long. That told me all I needed to know. The wedding party was too fancy, expensive champagne everywhere. The kind Robert always said was a waste of money. I knew the brand. $200 a bottle. Now he could suddenly afford it? I sipped mine slowly and watched them work the room. Something wasn't right. I noticed Lori's daughter wasn't there. Odd for such a happy family event. My own family smiled awkwardly at me from across the room. If they only knew what I did. But they would. Soon enough. Ever stayed silent while watching someone you loved betray you? Share your experience below. 3 months earlier, I had a small stroke. It scared me. When I got home from the hospital, Robert suddenly wanted to talk about our future money plans. He never cared about saving or planning before. But now he had all these questions about my house, my inheritance, my retirement accounts. That night, while Robert was in the shower, his phone lit up on the table. I never checked his phone before, but something felt wrong. The text messages between him and Lori were right there. She doesn't know how much the house is worth. And we need the account numbers before making any moves. They were talking about my money while I was still getting better. Robert said he was just giving money advice to Lori when I asked about the texts. Said she was having a hard time. But I already knew they'd been seeing each other for over a year. My friend saw them at a restaurant 2 towns away. I never said anything. I wanted to see what he'd do next. I ended things calmly. No yelling, no tears. Just said it wasn't working anymore. The shock on his face was almost funny. He got over it fast, though, saying we should stay connected for tax reasons. Said it would be bad money management to change our accounts right away. While we were splitting up our stuff, I caught him taking pictures of my bank statements. He thought I was in the kitchen, but I saw him in the mirror in the hall. Click, click, click with his phone camera. Papers that had nothing to do with him. Robert packed his things in a hurry. Clothes, golf clubs, that guitar he never learned to play. But somehow he forgot to give back the key to my safe deposit box. When I mentioned it, he acted confused. Said he'd look for it, but needed to go. He was meeting someone. I had 3 guesses who. The wedding invitation came just 3 weeks later. Cream paper with gold writing. Robert and Lori invite you to celebrate their marriage. There was a note. Family is everything. Let's stay close. Family? We never even got married. But now he was rushing to marry a woman he barely knew? Sure. I was watering my flowers when I saw them. Robert and Lori, driving slowly past my house. They parked down the street and walked around the neighborhood, pointing at houses. When they got to mine, my family home that I got from my parents, they stopped. Lori pointed excitedly. Robert nodded. They had plans, all right. Plans for my house. Then I found it. Robert had left an old briefcase in the back of my closet. Inside were papers showing he owed $163,000. Credit cards, loans, gambling debts. And there was a loan form with my address listed as backup. He'd faked my signature at the bottom. The next day, Thomas, my money advisor, called me. "Ms. Harlow, there's been some strange activity," he said. Someone had been asking about my accounts using my personal info. My social security number, my mother's maiden name, my birthday. All things Robert knew. Someone tried to change who gets your money if you die, Thomas told me. Lucky for you, they couldn't finish without your signature. Thomas had worked with me for 15 years. He knew something was wrong. "Tammy, are you okay? These requests aren't coming from you, are they?" I started writing everything down. Dates, times, talks. I took pictures of papers, saved text messages, recorded phone calls, all while smiling and being nice whenever I saw Robert or Lori. I wasn't going to show my hand. Not yet. I needed to see how far they would go. At my niece's birthday party, they showed up without being invited. Robert put his arm around Lori and said they had great news. They were getting married next month. Then he looked at me with fake worry. We're so concerned about Tammy after her health problems. She's not quite herself these days. I watched Robert pull my sister Barbara aside. I could hear their whispers. I'm worried about Tammy's choices right now, he said. The doctors said confusion can happen after a stroke. She's making some weird money decisions. We should watch her accounts. Later, Barbara hugged me goodbye. You know, sis, maybe it's time to move on, she said. Be happy for them. Robert seems to really care about you. I just nodded. My own sister couldn't see what was happening. Or maybe she didn't want to see. My bank called on Tuesday. Someone had tried to change where my bank statements got mailed. We said no since they didn't come in person, the bank lady said. But they had all your personal info. They were really pushy about it. Then friends started acting weird around me. Susan from my book club asked if I was feeling better mentally. When I asked why, she said Lori had told everyone I'd asked her to take care of Robert because of my brain problems. The lies were spreading. They were setting me up. Robert emailed me about having a friendly lunch to talk about our shared investments. He mentioned still having spare keys to my house and offering to check on things when I was out. How nice of him to offer to come into my home while I was away. Thomas called me to his office. Tammy, I think you should talk to a lawyer, he said, sliding a business card across his desk. Someone who knows about protecting older people's money. I've seen this pattern before. I took the card. Louise Mitchell, elder law attorney. I wasn't even a senior yet, but I knew what Thomas meant. What would you do if you discovered documents showing your ex was after your savings? Comment now. I found mail in my box addressed to Robert and Lori Keller, at my address. Bank statements, insurance papers, even a catalog from an expensive furniture store. They were creating proof that they lived in my home. I saw Robert's son Michael in my neighborhood one afternoon. He looked uncomfortable, looking at my house, then hurrying away when he saw me. I hadn't seen Michael in months. What was he doing here? Did he know what his father was planning? At the grocery store, I bumped carts with Lori's daughter, Jenna. She wouldn't look at me at first. Then she asked quietly, "Are you okay, Tammy?" With money, I mean. Before I could answer, she looked behind her and rushed away. She knew something. The lawyer confirmed everything I suspected. This is plain old money stealing, Louise said after looking at my papers. Sadly, I see this a lot. We need to write down everything. She explained how people often target others after health scares, using times when they're weak. A gift basket arrived at my door. Welcome to the family, the card said. Inside were chocolates, wine, and brochures for 3 different retirement homes, all at least 2 hours from where I lived, all with care options. Lori had signed the card with a smiley face. Robert called every day now, always casual at first, then steering toward my money. Have you thought about selling your house? Do you have a will? Who's handling your investments these days? Each question more nosy than the last. Each call ending with, just looking out for you. I put up security cameras after finding footprints in my flower beds under the windows. The very first night, they caught Robert and Lori walking around my yard at 11:30 p.m. They looked in windows, peered into my garage, and tried my patio door, all while I pretended to be asleep inside. You should make your life simpler, Robert told me over coffee he'd insisted on buying. Let me help by putting my name on your accounts. Just for emergencies, you know. His smile never reached his eyes. After all we shared, it's the least I can do. I was looking online for a handyman when I found it. A listing for my house on Lori's real estate website. Coming soon. Lovely family home in nice neighborhood. There was even a video tour showing the outside. My home. For sale without my permission. The papers arrived mixed in with my regular mail. Forms for home loans, property value checks, all with what looked like my signature at the bottom. But I hadn't signed anything. The fake signatures were good, but not perfect. They'd gotten bold. Too bold. Have you ever caught someone in a lie but waited for the perfect moment to expose them? Tell us your story. The next morning, I called my bank's fraud team. I brought every strange document, every recorded phone call, every photo. The lady's eyes got big as I laid out the proof. Ms. Harlow, this is one of the most organized fraud cases I've seen. The bank confirmed at least 9 tries to get into my accounts in the past month alone. all using my personal info, all asking either to change access or move money to new accounts. All stopped thanks to safety measures Thomas had helped me set up years ago. I spent a full day changing everything. New passwords, new account numbers, new security questions. Nothing related to my time with Robert. Nothing he could guess. I moved my important papers to a new safe box at a different bank, all while staying calm and friendly whenever we ran into each other. Barbara called me, sounding upset. "Tammy, Robert cornered me at the store asking about your will. He said you'd promised to make him your healthcare person. Is that true? He was really pushy about your living will and health papers." I reached out to Michael, Robert's son. He agreed to meet me at a coffee shop the next town over. "I'm not surprised," he said after I explained what was happening. "Dad's done this before. He goes after women with money, then finds ways to get it. He lived off my mom for years before emptying her accounts." Michael looked down at his coffee. "When I was in college, he borrowed my tuition money, said it was for an investment. I never got it back. Mom had to take a second mortgage to keep me in school." He shook his head. "Dad always finds women who will take care of him. They've been planning this for over a year," Michael said. He couldn't look at me. Lori contacted Dad through his financial advisor profile online. She specifically asked about helping vulnerable clients move assets. Dad bragged about finding a secure woman with property at Christmas last year. "I'm so sorry, Tammy. Thomas found attempts to move my investment portfolio to a joint account with Robert's name on it. They used your old passwords," he said, "and they had answers to your security questions. If we hadn't added that extra safety step after your stroke, they might have gotten in." I started collecting statements from others who'd noticed Robert and Lori's behavior. My neighbor, Mrs. Peterson, saw Robert using my spare key to enter my house while I was at the lawyer's office. "I thought you knew," she said. "He carried out a stack of papers when he left." The security camera footage proved it. Robert and Lori in my home office, going through my filing cabinet, opening drawers, taking photos of documents. They spent 45 minutes in my house while I was meeting with Louise. The time on the video matched exactly. Robert's calls got desperate. "We need to talk about our shared retirement plans," he insisted. "Remember how we talked about combining our money after your stroke? You agreed it made sense for both of us." I never agreed to any such thing. His voice had a panicky edge now. "Lori started a campaign with my family. My cousin told me she'd been asking about my mental state since my stroke. She seemed so worried," my cousin said. Said something about brain effects of strokes. "Are you okay, Tammy? Do you need help managing things?" I put a small voice recorder in my garden after noticing Robert and Lori often walked past my house. It caught them talking. "We need to move faster," Robert said urgently. "Once she figures out what we're doing, we'll lose our shot at the house. The accounts may already be locked." I set up a meeting with Louise to figure out the best way forward. "We have enough proof for legal action," she said. "But sometimes a direct confrontation with witnesses works better. It creates a record and often stops the stealing right away." "I suggest a family meeting," Louise continued. "Address the concerns about your health and money with everyone there. Bring your proof. Sometimes exposing manipulation in front of others is the best way to stop it." I spent hours organizing the evidence. Bank records, phone calls, security footage, witness statements. I made a separate folder for each family member, each with a timeline and copies of the most important documents. I wanted everyone to see the whole picture. Then the invitation arrived. Robert and Lori were hosting a celebration dinner for their 1-month anniversary at Romano's, the most expensive restaurant in town. All family members were required to attend. The perfect chance had just fallen into my lap. The same day, I got a formal letter from Robert's lawyer asking for access to my family property based on verbal agreements made during our relationship. It claimed Robert had helped significantly with home improvements and deserved fair payment or partial ownership. Thomas offered to come to the dinner with me. "I'll be your +1, he said with a smile. "I can back up the money stuff professionally. Sometimes people need to hear things from an expert." I accepted gratefully. I'd need all the support I could get. I chose my outfit carefully. A navy blue dress that made me look professional and confident. My mother's gold necklace, a reminder of my family and the home I was protecting. Low heels so I could stand comfortably if needed. I wanted to look strong, not hurt. Barbara called the night before the dinner. "Tammy, is everything okay? This dinner feels weird. Robert insisted we all come but wouldn't say why. And Lori's been asking strange questions about your house." My sister was finally starting to see the cracks. I practiced what I would say in front of my mirror. At first, my words came out angry, emotional. I rewrote them until they were clear, fact-based statements. No accusations, just evidence. No revenge, just truth. I would not let emotion weaken my message. The morning of the dinner, a courier brought an envelope. Inside was a legal paper Robert had filed claiming partial ownership of my family home. He cited verbal agreements during our relationship and work equity from small repairs he'd done over the years. They were making their move before I could make mine. Shocked by what she discovered, tag someone who needs to hear this story. I got to Romano's 15 minutes early. Robert and Lori were already there, heads close together, whispering. They looked confident, like people who thought they had the upper hand. How surprised they would be. The table was already set. I noticed the place cards right away. Mine was at the far end, separated from everyone else, set up to make me look isolated and unstable. I quietly changed them while the host was busy, putting myself between Barbara and Thomas. Robert's face when he saw Thomas walk in with me, I wish I'd taken a picture. Fear flashed in his eyes, then panic. He knew Thomas was my money advisor. He knew what that might mean, but he quickly put on a fake smile. Lori rushed to hug me, calling me practically family. Her perfume was too strong. Her eyes kept looking at my purse where I'd put the evidence files. "What a lovely necklace," she said, touching my mother's pendant. "Real gold, isn't it? So valuable to have family pieces." Robert stood to make a toast once everyone was seated. "To moving forward together," he said, raising his glass. "To keeping promises and taking care of each other." His eyes moved around the table, lingering on my family. The show was starting. The door opened, and two people walked in. Lori's daughter, Jenna, and Robert's son, Michael. I'd invited them but wasn't sure they'd come. Robert almost dropped his glass. "Michael, what a surprise. I thought you couldn't make it. Work stuff, right?" The panic in his voice was clear. "I wouldn't miss this," Michael said, taking an empty seat. "When Tammy called to invite me, I changed my schedule." Robert's eyes darted between me and his son. The shock that we'd talked hit him like a slap. His hand went to his watch, my gift, twisting it nervously. I stayed quiet through the appetizers. Let Robert and Lori talk. Let them build their story. They talked about their honeymoon plans, their shared vision for the future. Robert kept saying family unity and pooled resources, setting the stage for what was coming. Lori tapped her glass with a spoon. "We have a surprise announcement," she said, smiling big. "Robert and I want to help Tammy downsize. It's our gift to the family." Her smile was all teeth. "After her health problems, a big house is just too much work. We found some nice retirement homes." Barbara looked at me, confused. This was the first crack in her belief of their story. Downsize? Tammy loves her house. She's never talked about moving. Barbara's husband frowned, looking between Lori and me. The seeds of doubt were growing. Robert raised his glass again. "To family unity and supporting each other," he said, "especially taking care of Tammy and managing her money during this hard time." He was laying it on thick now, making sure everyone heard the story about my supposed brain problems. Lori began handing out shiny brochures to everyone. "These places have great features," she said brightly. "Supervised care, money management help, limited visiting hours so residents don't get too tired." She turned to me. "Tammy's house is just too much for her to handle alone now." I caught Barbara's husband nodding at me from across the table. A small, supportive gesture I hadn't expected. He'd always been quiet, but watchful. Had he seen through Robert from the start? I hadn't realized I had friends already in place. The main course arrived. As servers put plates in front of everyone, I finally spoke. "Before we talk about my future," I said calmly, "I'd like to share some papers about my past few months." I opened my purse and took out the first folder. The table went quiet. Robert glanced at his watch. my gift marking the time of his exposure. His face went pale as I laid out papers in front of me. Lori's smile froze, then disappeared. Barbara and the others looked confused. Thomas sat straighter, giving me silent support. The moment I'd planned for was here. After my small stroke 3 months ago, I began, my voice steady. I noticed some worrying patterns. It started with sudden interest in my money from people who'd never cared before. I laid out the first document, a timeline of events starting with my hospital stay. My bank has recorded at least 9 attempts to get into my accounts using my personal info, I continued, showing the bank records. Each try matches dates Robert and Lori were getting together. Each was stopped thanks to safety measures my advisor helped set up. Robert tried to interrupt. "Tammy is clearly still upset about our breakup," he said loudly. "She's making up conspiracies. The stroke affected her brain more than she knows." He looked around the table, appealing to my family. "This is exactly why we're worried." Thomas cleared his throat. "As Ms. Harlow's money advisor for 15 years, I can professionally confirm these unauthorized attempts to access her accounts." His calm, official voice silenced Robert instantly. "I have recorded each incident, with dates and methods used." I placed the security footage on the table. This was recorded last Tuesday at 2:15 p.m. while I was meeting with my lawyer. The pictures clearly showed Robert and Lori in my home office, going through my files. "You'll notice the time matches exactly with my documented appointment." Lori stood up quickly. "This is ridiculous. I don't have to listen to these lies." She grabbed her purse and turned to leave. Then Jenna spoke for the first time. "You've done this before, Mom." 4 simple words that stopped Lori in her tracks. 4 words that changed everything. Michael leaned forward. "Dad has a pattern," he said, talking directly to my family. "He finds women with money, moves into their lives, then creates ways to get their assets. He did it to my mom. He tried it with his girlfriend before Tammy. Now he's doing it again." Barbara's face showed the journey from shock to understanding to anger. She turned to me. "Tammy, I'm so sorry. I didn't see it." Then she moved to sit beside me, showing she was now on my side. "All those concerns about your health, they were setting up their plan, weren't they?" Robert's face turned dark red. "Tammy promised to support me in retirement," he said desperately. "After all I gave up for her career. 22 years I stood by her, and this is how she pays me back? By turning my own son against me? They never expected her to speak up. Their faces when she did. Share this video now." I pulled out more papers. These are records of the money support I gave throughout our relationship. The pages showed mortgages I'd paid, debts I'd covered, bills I'd handled. "And these," I said, putting another stack beside them, "show Robert's hidden debt of over $163,000 that I found after we broke up." Lori's perfect mask cracked completely. "Robert told me you had agreed to help us with money," she hissed at him. "You said she promised you part of the house. You said this would be easy." She backed away from him, trying to look like a victim. "I was just following what he said." "I'm 61 years old," Robert said, his voice breaking. "What am I supposed to do? My job in financial advising is over after the last firm fired me. Lori's real estate business barely makes money. We needed a solution." He looked around the table for sympathy, but found none. "I've filed reports with my bank's fraud department," I said calmly. "I've talked with legal experts about the fake signatures and break-ins to my home. I'm not pressing charges right now, but everything has been recorded if I need to take more action." The restaurant manager came to our table, worried about the rising voices. I nodded to him. "Everything is fine. Just a family talk." My calm response stood in sharp contrast to Robert's state, his tie loose, sweat on his face. "If that's how you want to play this, fine," Robert snapped. "But I'll fight for things in your house. The furniture we bought together, the art, the electronics. I can prove we got those things jointly." His desperation was showing now, grabbing at anything. I simply opened another folder. "This is a complete list with receipts and ownership proof for every item in my home worth over $100. I'd spent weeks making it. It clearly shows which items I bought alone, which we bought together, and which were family inheritances." The faces around the table had changed completely. Shock had turned to anger on my behalf. Barbara's husband, usually so quiet, spoke up. "Robert, you need to leave. Now." His tone left no room for argument. Others nodded. The tide had turned. Robert made one last desperate try. "She's not well," he almost shouted. The stroke affected her mind. The doctors warned about paranoia and confusion. She's imagining things that aren't real. She needs supervised care, exactly what Lori and I were offering. Without a word, I passed copies of my medical records to everyone at the table. The latest checkup, dated just 2 weeks ago, clearly said, "Patient has fully recovered with no brain effects. No limits on decision-making or independent living are needed." Barbara stood up, her voice shaking with anger. "You tried to make me think my sister was losing her mind. You pulled me aside at parties to plant doubts. You said we should help her with decisions because she wasn't thinking straight." Her hands were fists at her sides. "You used all of us." Thomas provided the final piece. "I recorded a talk outside my office last month," he said, putting a small recorder on the table. He pressed play. Robert's voice filled the air. "We need to get control of Tammy's assets before she catches on. The house alone is worth over $400,000. Total silence fell over the table. Robert and Lori stood frozen, their plan fully exposed. No one spoke. No one needed to. The proof was overwhelming. The truth was clear to everyone now. Robert grabbed his coat and walked out without another word. Lori followed a moment later, going in a different direction. Their united front had crumbled under the weight of exposed truth. They couldn't even look at each other as they left. I felt the weight lifting from my shoulders as family members gathered around me. "I had no idea," my cousin said. "They seemed so worried about you." Others nodded, saying sorry for not seeing through the lies, for doubting me even for a moment. Barbara hugged me tight, tears in her eyes. "I should have known better," she whispered. "You've always been the strong one, the smart one. I promise I'll be more careful about who I trust when it comes to our family." Her husband nodded firmly behind her. Jenna came over shyly. "I've seen my mom do this before," she said. "It's why I haven't talked to her in years. When I heard she got married again so quickly, I knew what was happening." She gave me her phone number. "If you need anything, a statement for your lawyer, whatever, call me." Thomas suggested more safety steps. "We should move your accounts to a whole new bank," he said. "Add fraud alerts to your credit reports. Write down everything that happened tonight while you remember it clearly. This might not be over." I got home to find my locksmith finishing up. I'd arranged to have all my locks changed that evening while I was at dinner. He handed me the new keys, shiny symbols of my house being truly mine again. "No one else has copies," he told me. "Just you now, ma'am." A week later, an envelope came from Robert's lawyer. He had dropped his claim for partial ownership of my home. The short letter only said, "Mr. Keller has decided not to pursue this matter further." No apology, but a retreat. A battle won. Friends from church and my garden club stopped by with flowers and support once the story spread. "We always thought he was too smooth," my friend Ellen said. "You handled it with such class, Tammy. Most people would have fallen apart." Their words meant more than they knew. I started house projects I'd been putting off for years. New paint in the kitchen, updated bathroom fixtures, brighter lights throughout the house. Physical changes that matched my emotional fresh start. This was my home, my safe place. I was making every inch of it mine again. Michael visited one afternoon with a cardboard box. "I found these at Dad's new apartment," he said. Inside were family photos he'd taken from my home, pictures of my parents, my childhood, trips we'd taken together. "I thought you'd want them back." This small act of kindness touched me deeply. My bank manager confirmed all my accounts had been moved and secured with extra fraud protections. "Given what happened, we've added more verification steps," she assured me. "No one can access these accounts without you coming in person with photo ID." Word reached me that Robert and Lori were already having problems. My neighbor's daughter was a waitress at the restaurant where they'd had a big public fight. Apparently, Lori had screamed about empty promises and a failed investment. Their rushed marriage was showing cracks after just 6 weeks. Barbara and her husband helped me create a new garden space in my backyard. We planted flowering bushes that would come back year after year. "These roots will grow deep," Barbara said as we worked. "Just like you, sis, strong enough to handle any storm." I started hosting a dinner group every Thursday. New friends formed during the hard times: Thomas, Jenna, Michael, my neighbor Mrs. Peterson. People who had stood by me or helped show the truth. We became a strange but supportive chosen family. Thomas got me involved in a community money education program. "Your story could help others spot the warning signs," he said. "If you're okay sharing what happened, it might stop someone else from going through the same thing." I agreed right away. My silence had done its job. Now my voice could help others. 6 months after the dinner at Romano's, a small envelope came with no return address. Inside was a short note from Robert. "I was wrong. I'm sorry." And my mother's missing brooch that had disappeared during our breakup. I hadn't even realized he'd taken it. Finding your voice again after betrayal can change everything. Has this inspired you? Let us know in the comments. I didn't put the brooch on or put it back in my jewelry box. Instead, I placed it in a memory box along with the note, knowing what happened without letting it control my future. The past had its place, saved, but not forgotten. The holidays came, and I hosted a party in my freshly fixed-up home. The people who had stood by me filled my dining room with laughter and warmth. Barbara's kids, home from college, brought friends. Thomas came with his wife. Michael and Jenna came too. Unlikely friends connected by their parents' actions. During the gift-giving, I gave Barbara my mother's gold necklace, the one I'd worn for strength during the confrontation. "You're the guardian of the family now too," I told her as she teared up. Our bond, tested by Robert's lies, had grown stronger than ever. Sitting in my living room that evening, watching people I loved enjoy themselves, I realized something important. My worth was never in what I owned. Not the house, not the accounts, not the things Robert had wanted. My worth was in my honesty, my self-respect, and the truth I'd fought for. I visited my parents' graves on a cool fall morning. "I protected what you built," I told them as I put fresh flowers down. "Not just the house or the savings, but the values you taught me." And I found my voice. I think you'd be proud of that most of all. Looking back, I saw that my quiet nature had helped me gather evidence, watch without showing my hand, but finding my voice, speaking truth clearly and without shame, that had saved me in the end. Different strengths for different times. Wisdom was knowing which to use when. Thomas told us he was retiring at our Thursday dinner. "Tammy's case reminded me why I became a money advisor in the first place," he said, raising his glass. "To protect people's futures. To stand against those who would steal from others. Thank you for reminding me what matters." We all clinked glasses. I joined a support group for people who had been through similar lies. Some were still gathering proof, like I had done. Others were rebuilding after losing everything. I shared my story each week, watching hope return to faces that had known the same pain. At Thanksgiving, Barbara's husband pulled me aside. "I never trusted Robert," he told me. "I've been keeping notes on things he said, lies I caught, since that first year you were together. I just never knew how to tell you." He handed me a small notebook filled with his observations. I hope that's okay. I'd always seen my quiet nature as a weakness, my habit of watching rather than confronting. But now I saw it as strength. It had let me see patterns others missed, to document carefully, to plan well. What Robert had mistaken for weakness had been patient strategy. The local senior center asked me to lead a class on money protection. "Your story is powerful," the director said. "You stopped a thief through awareness and evidence. That's a lesson many need to hear." We set up monthly talks, already fully booked. I updated my will with Louise's help, adding protections against future theft attempts. I also set up a small fund for teaching about financial manipulation. "Knowledge is the best defense," Louise said as we signed the papers. "You're creating something more valuable than money." 1 year after my showdown with Robert and Lori, I stood in my thriving garden. The plants we'd put in had grown strong and beautiful. Like me, they had put down roots, weathered storms, and come back stronger. Clearing away what hurts you makes room for new growth. News came through Michael that Robert had moved to Arizona. After many failed tries to hook up with financially secure women in our town, all now aware of his history, he'd decided to try his luck elsewhere. His tricks exposed, he had to find new hunting grounds. I found new strength in setting boundaries, saying no without feeling bad, speaking up when something felt wrong, choosing when to be quiet and when to use my voice. These weren't just reactions to what happened. They were choices about how I wanted to live from now on. My life found a new rhythm, hosting dinners for friends and family, taking trips to places I'd always wanted to see, teaching younger women at the money workshops. My home became a gathering place, filled with real relationships instead of lies. Lori called me 6 months after her divorce from Robert was final. She wanted to meet for coffee, to clear the air. I said no politely but firmly. Some doors, once closed, should stay that way. Some boundaries once set should not be crossed again. That was growth too. At the family reunion, I found myself in a new role. The quiet strength that had helped me through the hard times had become something others looked up to. Young nieces and nephews asked for advice. Cousins shared problems, trusting my judgment. I'd become a family elder of sorts, not through age, but through earned respect. Your path isn't my path, I told my niece who was having relationship troubles. But know your worth isn't tied to anyone else's view of you. It's in knowing yourself and standing firm in your truth. The words came easily now. Hard lessons freely shared. I looked through old photo albums one rainy day. Pictures of Robert and me at various events. Holidays, trips, everyday moments. They didn't hurt anymore. Just chapters in my story. Each had shaped me, even the painful ending. Especially the painful ending. We started a new tradition, what Barbara's kids called truth dinners. Once a month, family members got together to talk about any problems openly. No hiding, no secret plans, just honest talk about issues before they grew too big. A simple practice that would stop future Roberts from coming between us. Sometimes being quiet helps us gather strength. It gives us space to watch, to plan, to get ready. But finding our voice, using it clearly and without shame, that's how we take back our power. I learned both lessons. When to wait silently and when to stand and speak. That balance saved me. Standing in my doorway on a spring morning, keys firmly in my hand, I felt fully in charge of my life again. The house my parents had worked so hard for, the savings I'd carefully built, the relationships worth keeping, the boundaries worth setting. I was ready for whatever came next, on my own terms. Finding your voice again after betrayal can change everything. Has this inspired you? Let us know in the comments. In quiet moments, I sometimes think about how things might have gone differently. If I'd blown up in anger when I first caught Robert's lies. If I'd confronted him without proof. If I'd let emotions take over instead of planning. My quiet nature, what some saw as weakness, had actually been my shield and sword. When COVID lockdowns started, I used the time to write down my story. Not to publish it, but to make sense of it, to process it. For younger family members who might need the same lesson someday, words came easily once I started. Another way of finding my voice, of owning my story. Thomas's retirement turned into a new phase. He volunteered with me at the money education workshops. "We make a good team," he said after one especially successful class. "Your experience, my expertise. Together we helped dozens of people spot warning signs I'd missed at first. Each person we helped felt like a victory. Robert sent a Christmas card that year. A generic snow scene with a short message. "Thinking of you." I put it in my memory box without feeling anything. Not everything needs an answer. Not every message requires a response. Another lesson learned. Choosing not to engage is its own kind of power. Barbara and I started weekly sister lunches. "Remember when we were kids and you always let me talk while you listened?" she asked over soup one day. "I thought you were shy. Now I realize you were gathering info, forming opinions. You've always been the smart one." We laughed together, our bond stronger than ever. My home truly became mine again. I moved furniture, painted walls, colors Robert had said no to, hung art that I liked rather than what impressed others. Each change erased his influence a little more, not out of anger, but reclaiming. This space showed me now, completely and honestly. Jenna invited me to her college graduation. I sat proudly in the crowd as she got her degree in social work. "Your strength inspired my career choice," she told me afterward. "Helping people escape manipulation, just like you did. Connections come from surprising places sometimes." 2 years after that big dinner at Romano's, I celebrated my 60th birthday. My home filled with people who truly cared about me, who'd stood by me or joined my life later. The cake, the candles, the real laughter, all sweeter for having been nearly lost, all more precious for being protected. I started dating again. Carefully at first, then with more confidence. Not looking for someone to replace Robert or protect me, but for good company on equal terms. I knew the warning signs now. I trusted my gut feelings. And most importantly, I valued myself too much to accept anything less than real respect. Michael stopped by with news. Robert was getting married again, to a widow in Arizona with valuable property investments. I felt no anger, just sadness for the woman who didn't know what I did. Some people never change their ways, but I had changed mine, and that made all the difference. When COVID restrictions eased, I finally took that trip to Italy I'd always dreamed about. 2 weeks exploring small towns, eating ice cream in sunny squares, looking at art in quiet museums. No one rushing me along, no one judging my choices. Freedom tasted sweet in every bite, every view. Walking through Rome's ancient ruins, I thought about strong foundations, how buildings made on solid ground last while those thrown up quickly fall down. My life now had that kind of base, built on knowing myself, setting healthy limits, and real relationships. The kind that lasts. Barbara's daughter got engaged. At the celebration dinner, she asked if I would help plan the wedding. "You know what matters," she said simply. "You can see past the surface to what's real." The highest praise, from the younger generation. The legacy I wanted to leave. Louise retired from her law practice, but first introduced me to a women's investment group. "Tammy knows firsthand why money independence matters," she told them. "And she has wisdom worth sharing." I joined right away, finding joy in helping others build security. I donated my mother's brooch, the one Robert had taken and returned, to a charity auction helping victims of financial abuse. It sold for $700. A thing from my past transformed into help for others' futures, the perfect way to let it go. At the 5-year mark after the showdown, I realized something big. I hardly thought about Robert anymore. The anger had completely faded. The hurt had healed. What remained was wisdom, strength, and thanks for the life I'd protected. The long shadow he once cast had vanished in the light of my rebuilt life. News came that Lori had moved back to town, now working at a different real estate office. We passed each other at the grocery store once. Simple nods of recognition, nothing more. No drama, no renewed fight. Just two people whose paths had crossed and separated. I felt nothing but peace. My sister's husband was diagnosed with early Parkinson's. Without hesitation, I opened my home to their family during the weeks of initial treatment and adjustment. My turn to provide safety, to offer strength. The house that Robert had wanted became a healing place for those I truly loved. The money education program grew to 3 locations across the county. My quiet story of documentation and confrontation became a teaching tool, shared with my permission. The Tammy Harlow method, Thomas jokingly called it. Watch, document, plan, then speak your truth with proof. I started painting in my 60s, something I'd always wanted to try but never made time for. My first finished canvas hung in my living room. A simple garden scene with deep roots visible below flowering plants. Not perfect art, but meaningful. Visitors often commented on its unusual view. My niece faced her own relationship problem. A boyfriend who subtly undermined her confidence, questioned her decisions. I recognized the pattern right away. "Trust your feelings," I told her. "Write down what feels wrong. Your gut instincts are valid information." She ended things before real damage was done. The cycle broken. The neighborhood changed slowly. New families moved in as older residents downsized. I became the keeper of local history, the one who remembered when the oak trees were planted, when the community garden started, roots that went deep, giving stability through seasons of change. On the 7th anniversary of that big dinner at Romano's, I held a different kind of gathering, a celebration of resilience, of boundaries kept, of truth honored. We called it my freedom anniversary. Barbara brought a cake. Thomas gave a toast. We celebrated not what was lost, but what was saved. I wrote letters to my younger self, therapy suggested by my support group, not with blame or regret, but kindness. You did the best you could with what you knew then, I wrote. And when you learned more, you acted with courage. Healing comes in unexpected ways, often through being gentle with ourselves. My 70th birthday arrived with a surprise party organized by Barbara. Friends from every chapter of my life gathered to celebrate. As I looked around at their faces, some I'd known forever, others who'd entered my story during or after the hard times, I felt rich beyond measure in the ways that truly matter. Life settled into peaceful patterns, morning coffee in my garden, volunteer work at the community center, dinners with friends and family, simple joys fully enjoyed. The drama was long past, but the lessons stayed, built into wisdom that shaped each day, each choice, each boundary kept. Sometimes I catch myself touching my mother's necklace, now returned to me by Barbara for special events. The gesture connects me to my family, to the strength of generations before me. I am the keeper of their legacy now. Not just the physical home, but the values, the toughness, the truth. The final chapter of my story isn't about Robert or Lori or even the confrontation that changed everything. It's about the life built afterward, the peace earned, the joy reclaimed, the real self found through crisis and coming out stronger. That's the true win. Not just surviving betrayal, but thriving beyond it. Standing in my garden on a perfect summer evening, surrounded by plants now fully grown and blooming, I realize I am exactly where I should be. In my own space, on my own terms, keys to my kingdom firmly in hand, master of my fate, writer of my story, ready for whatever comes next.